Hi there everyone, thank you for joining me for another Just a Thought. Now, as we always say, these are not detailed Bible studies or big preach or anything like that, just me sharing a few thoughts with you. And today I wanted to share about a particular Bible passage that has really spoken to me, has blessed me, has challenged me today. And I trust that it will really speak to you as well. And it's from the book of Mark, which we've been looking at. I've been looking at in my teaching lately, in the lead up to Easter. And this is from Mark chapter 10 at verse 46. And it's the well-known account of Bartimaeus. It says from verse 46, "Then they came to Jericho. As Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, 'Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me.' Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, 'Son of David, have mercy on me.' Jesus stopped and said, 'Call him.' So they called to the blind man, 'Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you.' Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. 'What do you want me to do for you?' Jesus asked. The blind man said, 'Rabbi, I want to see.' 'Go,' said Jesus, 'your faith has healed you.' Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. Now, Bartimaeus is obviously in a really bad way. He's blind, and his only means of survival is through begging. But as he discerns that Jesus is coming along the road, perhaps his vocabulary changes. Maybe he was saying, "Can you spare any change?" And now he's crying out to Jesus, and he says, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Those words, "Son of David," are massive. He's acknowledging that Jesus is the Messiah. He's calling Jesus King. He's recognizing that sovereignty and that authority. And out of that, the words he uses are, "Have mercy on me." Now, I think it's been a pretty tough week lately in the news, and it has been generally, some very difficult events to deal with and to watch and to process. I'm sure that you will all have been greatly affected by the tragic death of Sarah Everard and all the things that have emerged from that. And with this and with other stories that we see in the news, we see incredible pain and hurt, and we see a great deal of fear. And as we've seen a lot of in the news over the past year, a lot of division between people. And when these things happen, what is our response going to be in the light of it all? Well, I think we have a great example from Bartimaeus. That recognition of who Jesus is, and out of that, a cry for mercy. And he says, "Have mercy on me." Now that's humbling, isn't it, when we use those words? But we know, of course, that God raises up the humble, but opposes the proud. We can look at our world and our nation, we can look at the things that we see, the accounts that we read. We can look at other people in our lives and think, you know what, they need to come to repentance, they need to change the way they think and the way they act. They need God's mercy. And it's true, actually the greatest need that people have right now is for God's mercy, the things that people have done to one another, the way that they have treated one another, and how far we have strayed from God as a nation, as a world. Absolutely. But I think actually, what about me? What about the state of my heart? If we are those, as we say that we are, who are called to stand in the gap for our world, and we talk a lot about being on the front line, don't we? It doesn't get much more front line than that, in a sense, spiritually speaking. We need to acknowledge that need in ourselves for God's mercy. And putting this first is positioning ourselves really well to pray in the will of God. Out of this for Bartimaeus and for us as well. Jesus initiates the specific and he meets the need of Bartimaeus. Now, of course, the crowd try and put Bartimaeus off, don't they? They're like, be quiet. But he will not be silenced. Remember last week when I was talking about the mixing desk of our lives? We've got to put that fader of faith. You remember? That fader of faith up to 11 and drown out that opposition, drown out that doubt, and maybe the loudest noise, the biggest sound on that mixing desk that needs bringing down a few pegs is our own at times. Now, there is a lot that will get in the way of prayer in our lives. For me personally, sometimes I just don't get it. I don't understand why I'm not praying or praying in the way that I should. I recognise that need to pray. I want to pray, but it's just not happening. It's just not connecting for some reason. And it's just a reminder for us that we need to keep going with this. We need to keep pressing through in this whole realm of prayer. And when we don't have the words, well, Bartimaeus gives us something really helpful to work with, I think, here. Jesus, you are sovereign. You can do all things. I don't know what to pray, but Lord, have mercy. Have mercy on me. And see what doors open. And actually, if doors don't appear to be opening, keep praying. We see a real persistence, don't we? A real perseverance in Bartimaeus. And we see a desperation. And maybe that's the thing that's missing at times for God's people. When was the last time that you and I cried out to God in desperation for something of ourselves or for a loved one, for a situation, maybe that thing that we saw on the news or that thing that we saw in somebody else, crying out to God in desperation for it? Bartimaeus wasn't being polite here, was he? He wasn't observing social niceties, and I think sometimes that's a big problem, certainly for me. Maybe it is for you, that we're just a bit too polite in the way that we pray, and maybe that needs to stop, and there needs to be a bit of a shift there. I love this quote from Spurgeon, and this is in a commentary on this particular Bible passage, and you might need to work through a bit of the language here, some of the these and thous and that old-fashioned way of speaking, but this is powerful and this really challenges me, and maybe it will with you too. Spurgeon says, "Take the gates of heaven and shake them with thy vehemence, as though thou wouldst pull them up, post and bar and all. Stand at mercy's door and take no denial." I love that. I mean, it reminds us, doesn't it, of Jacob wrestling with God. I will not let go until you bless me. Spurgeon says, "Knock and knock and knock again, as though thou wouldst shake the very spheres, but what thou wouldst obtain an answer to thy cries. The kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. Cold prayers never win God's ear. Draw thy bow with thy full strength, if thou wouldst send thy arrow up so high as heaven." Good, isn't it? Now, we need to make sure that we're not those who bar the way for people to come to Jesus because of our agendas, because of our inconvenience, because there are people that he is wanting to reach. Verse 49, Jesus says to those with him, "Call him." And he's saying call him or call her to you about certain people at this time. People with hearts that are warmed and open to Jesus. I'm just conscious that at this time, or we've recognised over this period, that a kind of softening and inclination towards the things of God, the things that are beyond people as they've faced those situations and come to the end of themselves. But as things continue to open up, people's focus will be drawn elsewhere. Their hearts will be hardened to the things of God. There can be a change and a shift the other way. And we just need to take hold of our vision at this time, which is, to look for the one in 2021 and to look now, to take the opportunity. Who is that one? Ask it again today. Who is that one that Jesus is saying to you and me? Call them. And maybe that's even a direct word for you today. Actually, maybe you just need to give that person a call and do it now. I won't be offended if you tune out now, and go and do that. So verse 49, they respond with these words, cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you. And I don't think it's a sense of, cheer up, might never happen. That's really not very helpful things to say to people when they're going through a difficult time. We don't know what people are facing, and so we need to be a bit sensitive and a bit careful in the way that we speak to one another. I think other translations render it a bit better. It says, take heart, have courage, arise, get up, he's calling you. Who do you need to tell to take heart today that Jesus is calling them? So it ends with Bartimaeus receiving his sight, and he follows Jesus. And to close this, as we know, names, of course, carry a lot of sway in the Bible. They speak to not just who a person is, but who and what they are. And despite the poverty of Bartimaeus, he is Bar, which means son of, and then Timaeus, which means esteemed, it means prized, it means worth it. And that is us, that's the beauty of this, that's the vantage point with which we cry out to God as ones who are the other side of Calvary, ones who have been shown mercy. And that gives us a security and a confidence to humble ourselves before God, and a humble faith to cry out to his mercy. Because as we always say, it's faith, isn't it, that Jesus is looking for in his people. It's what pleases him. It's impossible to please him without faith. And for Bartimaeus, his faith is the key to unlocking his healing. So there you go. Just a few thoughts from this account in Mark of Bartimaeus. There's lots more that could be drawn out of that, and I wonder what God says to you as you read those words. But I hope there's been something helpful there for you. So really looking forward to online church this week. We have got ministry from Peter Goodchild, and Peter serves with Emmanuel Press in South Africa with his wife Kay. And so we're blessed to have Peter preaching the word, but also Mandy and I caught up with Peter and Kay on Zoom recently. They're actually in the UK at this present time. And so on Sunday we're going to be watching some of that as well. And remember as well that this Sunday we have Energize, which is great. And so grateful to Steve and to Jane for doing Energize for us each month. And really encourage you, if you have primary school age kids or older creche children, join us for Energize at 9:15 on Sunday morning. So good. And of course we have the pre-recorded element on YouTube and the live element on Zoom. So it's going to be really, really good. So there you go. I hope you have a really good day. Have a brilliant week. God bless you all. I'll see you very soon.